All right. Hello. Welcome back to the Cookie Chat over here on YouTube. I am Chelsea with Rolling in the Dough AZ,
Hello, I'm Melissa with Missy P Sweets.
and we are just two basic bakers letting loose and keeping it real over here, chatting up everything from cookies to life to planning. Miss Melissa,
Look, we're
speaking of
covering all
life,
those just today on this
I
episode.
know, right?
What are
What?
you in the midst of? You are about to launch Halloween.
Yes. I am in the
I already
process.
have my first round. This is a lovely Sunday afternoon, guys, that we are filming this. Well, afternoon for me, it's still morning for you.
It is still morning for me. Yes.
Over in the part of the world where they keep track of the time correctly, as we
Yeah.
all should, with no daylight savings.
Yep.
But anyways, yeah, I have well, by the time this airs, I will have been done with my boo baskets.
Well, tell us
First
because
round.
I found that you released it way
Okay.
earlier. I was like, "Gosh, am I missing something? Like, why is it so early?"
Well, okay. I felt like last year I missed out on the boo basket craze with this neighborhood because our old neighborhood, they did a little bit of it, but it wasn't
Mhm.
like super crazy. And this neighborhood, it was literally like every other day people are posting on the Facebook page that they had gotten booed. And the neighborhood is so sweet. It's just so full of like kids, and even like the high school kids were getting into it. And so people would post like nearing, I don't know, like the 20th or something. People are like, who hasn't been booed yet? Because we got booed and we're searching for somebody to boo. And so I like mental noted it last year. I was like, okay, well, I need to hop on this because this is obviously a big thing in this neighborhood.
Mhm.
So yeah, I had originally thought that I was going to have them for pickup like the 10th or something like that, like kind of like midway through, but then and I was like, "Oh yeah, we're out of town." So that won't work.
Yeah.
So I'm getting it out of the way early. But what I did was double up on how like everything that I made, and so that I can freeze them so that at least for my neighborhood I can be like, "Okay, hey, if you need a last minute thing,
Oh, that's a smart idea.
let me know and I'm here." But
Y
we do have Halloween coming up. Are you excited? You haven't made your samples yet, have
I
you?
have not. No. You know what? It was funny though because when I've posted the last, oh gosh, 4 holidays, I've made them the night before,
Yeah.
and people have asked, which I guess is true, and hear me out. I pretty much have in mind what is gonna work and what's not gonna work. Truthfully, my elimination process is, like, maybe 1 or 2 cookies,
Yeah.
where I do know
You're a
some people make
machine.
I think I've just done it so much that I'm like, I
Yeah,
know what's gonna sell, I know what I'm kinda looking for. I'll make 2 of each cookie because if I mess up on a design or I'm like, not loving this color scheme," then I can flip
sure.
a little bit of things. But a lot of people have said, I think I'm gonna switch over to making it the day before because it creates an urgency of, like, you don't have time to dilly-daddle, and you don't have time to constantly rethink a design. You're just
Mhm.
like, "Well, what I have is what I have." And I was like, "Oh, good. I guess I do think that because 'cause I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna love this, and I'm gonna find a way to make it cute."
Yeah?
So, I never thought of it that way. I just didn't have time. So,
Yes.
yes. But I'm doing my Boo Basket samples I'm making this week. I already built it into my, weekly cookies that are created because they go on sale next week.
Do you have on your list I feel like the cookie pops are huge right now for
Yeah,
Halloween.
they used to be. I have all of those. I have, like, the fangs. I have, like, the vampire fangs. I have, I think, the
Yeah.
werewolf ones. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like,
I
yeah, I
feel like
have all of
any
that
cookie you just stick on a
on a
stick.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's a
kinda
whole
prefer to do the version where you don't bake it onto the stick.
you frosted it on?
Um, no, actually, the sweet design shop, she like did the cookie and she heat sealed it.
Mhm.
And then she did tape and like taped the stick onto the back of the bag and then did bow around the bottom. So that way,
Hmm.
because I guess my concern with doing the stick in it, how do you get it freeze? You can't get it heat sealed all the way, can you? How do
No,
you
you
do
can't heat seal it, you just have to twist it, like and then
Yeah,
use those
like as
twist
tight
ties,
as
like
you
what you use
can.
on breads
Yeah,
and do that, so it kinda creates a seal, but,
yeah,
I mean, I love that for me as a packaging person,
yeah.
that makes more sense to do it that way. But as far as the kids enjoying it, I feel like the whole joy of is
Yeah.
eating it on a
I've
stick
got a cookie
or
lollipop.
yeah, or holding it up and taking the cute pictures because again, back in the day, I feel so old. Like the Santa beards and stuff. I have all those because that was also a big trend.
Yeah.
So yes, my boo basket and booze are next week. So I'm making my samples and then the following week I'll be making samples for Halloween.
Fun
But
stuff. Well, we will be getting more into all of that, a holiday timeline for you guys in a little bit. But first, I feel like we need to talk about the really cute things we have on.
our basic baker, our new fall merch. Oh my gosh, I'm shaking the desk. Go ahead and do
You're
yours
just so
first.
excited.
Ah! All
Okay,
right, so
you gotta sit up a little bit because I
oh my
love
gosh, I'm
this.
so short.
There you go. I just want to see that new logo. Okay, the orange. Okay, a burnt orange. Are you kidding me? That's like my favorite, and always.
I know, it's so fall.
I
So
know.
fall.
I
But yeah,
know.
it's a cute
It's really
sweatshirt.
cute. It's got the rolling pin up at the top of
It's
it.
got
I
the
love that
hoodie.
logo. It's got the hoodie. It's got the hoodie. Okay, but yeah, I
I
mean,
love
we can
this, and
all
it's so
admit.
soft.
We can all admit. Okay, I'm gonna knock
Our
everything over
favorite of
here.
them all.
Our favorite, the one that we all live in. Okay, and we had so many questions about like, okay, how exactly, like, what's the sizing on it? You need to
Yes.
go look at our reel where I'm like spinning around in it. But it's a full, like, I call it a sleeper shirt. That's why I was adamant. I was like, Chelsea, I want it to say Sleepy Baker because
I
I'm
know,
gonna
I call it
sleep in
boyfriend
it.
tee.
I think this is like nostalgic for me because my mom has do you know the brand Bum?
I
BUM?
do not.
Okay, I don't know where it's located. She grew up in Nebraska, so I don't know if it's like a Nebraska thing or what, but she has this oversized gray bum. It says bum on it. And it's just nostalgic. Like that was mom's sleep shirt. Like that
Oh,
was
okay, I can see where you're yeah.
it was long and like I have a picture honestly of her in it holding our littlest one and like our older daughter's like looking at her and I'm like, "Ah, she's in the shirt." It's like, yeah, it's just so nostalgic for me. So I just think of these as sleeper shirts, but they're super popular for to wear like with biker shorts and stuff like that underneath it too.
Yeah. No, those are my shirts that I live in during the week,
Mhm.
running around everything just because they're cute, comfy, loose fit. You don't
So
have to worry
comfy. I
about
feel like this style is going to be a staple in all of our drops
I'm
because
so glad. You guys, Krista
I
and
know.
I shout out to Krista. We're on the hunt
Yay.
for these shirts
I know.
for months. I
Mhm.
was very picky on the style, and thank goodness she
Yeah.
gets me. I'm like,
And it's like
no.
I'm really impressed with the quality too, because it's not like it's super cozy, but it's not like it doesn't feel like a super like lightweight, cheap feel. Like it's got a little bit of like heft to it, you know?
Oh yeah, no, I know. She would send me ones, and
Mhm.
I'm like, that just looks like I went too large on my t-shirt. Like it
Yeah.
has to
If you
actually
guys
have the
wonder how
look.
we plan merch together, I'm always like, Chelsea, go find the products and I will design things.
Yeah, Melissa is. She does the logo part of it. That is 100%
But
her
Chelsea's so
design.
good at just like knowing what's going to be on trend and finding all the colors and all the things.
The garment hunt is
Mhm.
definitely. I bless Krista, man. How many times I've had her send me hats and stuff. I'm like, I need to feel them. I need to try them on.
Oh, so that reminds me, our youngest one, so she's 5.5, and she was getting really frustrated because she wanted her sister to show her. I don't know exactly what it was. My mom was watching them at the time, and she was like, "No, I want to see it." And our oldest one is like, "You are seeing it," and my youngest one goes, "I want to hold see it."
Yes, that's how I
So
feel with
that is
Krista.
now where well, I need to hold see.
Yes. Yeah, it
So
makes a difference. Makes a
yeah,
huge
it
difference.
did.
But yeah, so no, this is over at the Domestic Cookie. So if you want to snag it, and if you are part of our Patreon, you get 10% off of all of our merch launches, current and past.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so Chels, can you
Yes.
believe it's I want to say that we're right around a year that we started pre-recording episodes.
Probably. I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we started right around this season.
yeah.
What a
Um,
change.
I know. But I feel like life has changed so much for both of us.
Melissa and I have swapped lives.
I mean, yeah, seriously. Seriously. So I think the biggest change is like um, our household, the youngest one is in kinder now too. So I have now done the stay-at-home mom graduation And both kids are now in full-time school, which it's a bittersweet thing, but I am like, what, 2 months in at this point, and I gotta tell
Mhm.
you, I am loving life.
What do you think's the biggest game changer since we have so many
I
moms that have
I
little ones
yeah,
still at home?
it's, I wouldn't have changed it for anything. I would
Mhm.
not have changed the way that we did things. Our youngest was only doing 3 days a week of preschool, so we didn't even do, like, 5 days a week of pre-K or anything like that, or daycare or any of that. And I think I feel like I don't feel so overwhelmed or rushed. I just think that I feel more present. Um, and I just feel I'm not doing super late nights, because that used to be when I was fulfilling orders and working a lot of the times, was either when they were in preschool, or I would do 1 or 2 cookie nights a week,
Mhm.
and that would be regular. And so I would have at least 1 or 2 days a week where I was just like tired, you know? Just kind of pooped. And then I think my brain would have a hard time shutting off sometimes when it was meant to be time with them, because I'm thinking of the things I got to catch up on. So I just feel like life feels a little more balanced, and I feel much more present when they are out of school and just focused. And yeah, I feel in a zone. But I think that I wouldn't have changed anything or the way that I did it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I've been excited for this, and our girls love school, and so they are thriving, and I'm so thankful for our teachers. And I told my husband this, like, I feel like every single day, whether it's an email with the teacher or a text message or something, like, I have a touch point on their school and what's happening every day. So I still feel like involved, and I don't feel like, you know, out of it. So
Yeah.
that's been one of the biggest changes here, and we can go into some other changes from a business standpoint for me. But
Well,
Chelsea,
what
on
did
the
you change? Go ahead. What did you change on your business?
we're okay. I just feel like I'm talking too much. Are people annoyed of my voice? Um, so the other thing, and this happened back in January, I made the decision to pause for the moment on custom orders. So I was doing custom cookies and custom cakes, and I
So it's
love
almost
doing
been a
that.
year
It's
for
Isn't
you.
that crazy? Yeah.
Insane.
And so of course my initial, like, ambitious self is like, I'm gonna launch a class. And you guys, Chelsea is so sweet and so patient. She was like, so when's the class launching now? It started like January. And she's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, so okay, so it's March. So when's the class launching?
Trying to be
And
respectful of your
I
time.
mean, you're very, very sweet. And so supportive and everything. But yeah, I finally got down to where I was like, okay, like, this is embarrassing at this point. I need to be making this happen. Um, but what I was doing though was doing pre-sales. So I was still doing pre-sales. And initially, the first thing that I did was launch my Patreon. So I started getting into graphic design work with all of our cookie chat things, and really just kind of loved all of that. And so I started getting into doing a little bit more of that. And then tutorials, I've always done tutorials on my Instagram,
Mhm.
but we started a Patreon with cookie chat. And my husband's like, why don't you have a Patreon? And I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, yeah, let's try it out. So, so yeah, I launched a Patreon, and so I was doing, like, I was offering graphics and tags and some one-on-one session opportunities, which was so fun, and then doing tutorials. So I started with that, and then um, I dabbled around with different ways of what kind of class do I want to teach, because I think my thing was, we all talk about imposter syndrome, with making cookies. And I basically transitioned myself into, okay, now I'm like kind of going into this cookie educator role. And guys, let me tell you, that has an imposter syndrome side effect as well. Because there's so many amazing classes out there, and there are so many amazing
Mhm.
teachers who I'm like the newbie in that world. And I was like, what do I even teach? Because I wanted to bring something new to the table. And I know that, like, listen, like, there are, other podcasts that talk about baking too. And like, there's enough room for everybody. And sometimes like things land better hearing it from other people. So I'm not saying that like I can like teach just decorating cookies too, and that's fine. And I think that there is room for that. But I don't know. I wanted to do something a little bit different. And so I had been doing pre-sales regularly. And I finally, before, whenever I was doing pre-sales, it was always like, I'm so stressed and this is like too much. And like, I should have done this and I should have done that. And finally, the last couple rounds of pre-sales, I remember talking to you and I was like, this felt oddly like easy. Like this just, it felt like I was like, okay, so I feel like I actually like I really have a handle on this.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I loved doing with pre-sales was like rounding everything design wise. So like I love having like a through line on my color scheme and all of my packaging. And I've worked with graphic designers before to do that. And so I was like, okay, you know what? What if that's kind of like what I can do? And I can do this, teach what I've learned with pre-sales on like a really like intense level and do all of the design packaging myself and all the designs and all of the cookie decorating tutorials and wrap all of that into a thing. And I think Chelsea was like, that sounds amazing, but also crazy.
Not
And
my cup of tea.
I know you were like, oof. But I did it. And so I launched my first online class. It was, it is a Halloween pre-sale masterclass. And it's been so fun. And I feel like it's been really well received. And um, now that being said, it's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's definitely something that I want to keep doing.
Mhm.
And I'm definitely going to continue down that path. And so for the rest of the holidays, what I decided to do was I am opening up an Etsy shop now, is the next piece of this. So I'm not doing a full masterclass for the rest of the holidays in 2022. So Thanksgiving, Santa's Helper, and like Christmas, winter holidays. So I'm going to do all of kind of the design pieces of that, social media graphics for pulling your audience and announcement graphics and some general tags and backers in different color schemes with like color formulas of what icing colors to use to match all of your packaging and stuff. So I'm going to be selling those on Etsy. And then on my Patreon is where I'm going to be doing the deep dive into the tutorials for everything. And I think the biggest piece of like one of the things that I've gotten most feedback of, this is amazing and this is so helpful in the master classes, is that links to this is exactly what box, like this is
Mhm.
exactly the cookie cutter and this is exactly what box to buy that cookie is going to fit in. Here's exactly the tag to use. Here's exactly where to get your bow from or your backer, so that everything is like, because I think that can be one of the things that gets so overwhelming sometimes in doing pre-sales, is not just creating cookies, but it's all of the packaging stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's
Your whole shift, your background is graphic, so people know this wasn't just all of a sudden you were
well,
like
kind of. So my background is advertising.
Mhm.
Okay, so I went to college for theater. Shocking. Um, I went to college as an acting major, and then halfway through junior year, I had like a mental breakdown and was like, "Holy moly, that is really intense." And and my personal like personality, I was like, I don't think I can handle like being told no for the rest of my life.
Well, this is
My
like no
psyche is
rejection.
not going to handle this. Um, and just all the uncertainties, like it was overwhelming. And I was like, no, like I need to like realize like I like stability and like
Mhm.
that's what's going to make me the happiest. And so I shifted to advertising, was in the same school as theater. It was still like within the creative school. And so I shifted to advertising, but I was already like halfway through junior year, and the graphic design program was really intense. Like I would have had to start all over. So
Yeah.
I always wanted to do that, but I was like, look, I just got to like get done with college. So I did that, but I was in the advertising space. Like I've always had an eye for that stuff. And
So you're familiar with it. Like me just starting out, I would be like, I have nowhere to
yeah,
even
and
start with
I
layering this
am
stuff.
very tech savvy. Like I've
Yes.
always been tech savvy. I do all the video editing for this. Like I love all of that stuff.
I have
Production side of
no
things.
desire whatsoever to sit in front of a computer and bust out.
Again, it's just like God knew what he was doing when he was like, "Hey guys, you two should
I
like
know.
do business together."
Never can I ever sit and edit. Nope. So it is a blessing. Do you feel more fulfilled in this aspect of the business and industry versus creating cookies?
It's just a different thing, I think. The days that I get to sit down and it's my days of like, okay, you're gonna like decorate cookies and do tutorials now, or when I like get to sit down and just zone out and fulfill all the pre-sale orders, those those are amazing. I think just now hitting me here. I think I like having the diversity that I have now,
Mhm.
where it's not every week I am prepping and fulfilling a cookie and cake order and that I have deadlines to meet for that. I like that it's more like, okay, I'm going to edit a podcast today and make graphics for this today. Tomorrow I'm going to like work on some samples. The next day I'm going to work with the cookie cutter shop and do that stuff. And then the next day I'm gonna like, like I like having the variety of what I have, I
Yeah,
think
it sounds
is
like cookies are now like a luxury decorating and like a zone time versus, you know what I mean? Like the pressure of the job. Like if you have a holiday sale, it's like one intense week, but then you know
yeah,
it's gonna leave.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so now but it's crazy because now I'm thinking so far ahead, like we're sitting in October. I'm already like, okay, I want to try and launch a masterclass for Valentine's. So now I'm like,
You're like in the
how
cutter
these
shop
I
mindset
am
of all of it.
100%. Or
Yeah.
like the people who do classes like Miller's, oh gosh, I love her
Yeah, the
stuff.
miller's
Miller,
wife.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, like last week, she was like, "Okay, so here's Christmas colors." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's like, yeah, where we're at." Like, I already feel behind because I haven't filmed my Thanksgiving stuff yet.
Yeah. It's just a whole
Mhm.
nother asset of our business and
It is. It
yeah.
is. But it's fun, but it's scary. Yeah, launching that masterclass, I had a goal and of like, you know, are people going to like really love it? So yeah, it's just different. It's been scary but y'all are wonderful supporters and it's been fun. It's fun. I'm finally feeling into a groove with it 10 months after changing course.
Yeah, right? Oh my goodness. Well, good, I'm glad. Yeah, this stuff is so cute and different, and it's just not something that we see all the time, so
Well, thank
you're
you.
rocking it. Yes.
Thanks, girl.
I feel
All
like my
right.
life is so boring in comparison to yours.
And no,
Like
man, are you kidding me? You're doing something that like blows my mind. So fill us in on what has changed over in the Rolling in the Dough AZ household.
The big primary that I'm sure a million of you guys know is that I have opted for homeschooling this year versus sending my kids. So my kids are home, so that's been like a course adjustment. Partially and not really. And that's where it's hard. And I know so many of you guys are so sweet and have sent messages about like, do you have homeschooling tips? Do you have this? I don't like giving tips on that because every household runs so differently. It's like giving parenting advice.
Yeah.
So I could give you some advice that works for my kids, but my kids aren't your kids. So that's where I kind of get I would say more I don't want to say self-conscious, but like I don't like to dabble in that arena. I don't want someone to ever feel like anything about what I say. So
Right.
I try and
I
keep it
feel like
just high
this has
level.
been a big shift with everything that this world has gone through since 2020. I mean, I think we were all forced into homeschooling in one way or
Yeah.
another in 2020. And I think that, when I was growing up, it was like, oh, like the troublemakers or like the kids who had like intense like learning problems were the ones who like tended to do homeschool. And that is just not the case anymore. I feel like
Yeah.
it's such a difference. So are you comfortable talking about like why you guys made that decision for your household?
Yeah, so part of it did get brought on through COVID and the learning at home and all of that type of stuff is just noticing how well my children both did with that. Both my kids are super social, love being with friends, love that. But the aspect of like the actual schooling, there was less nerves. They were more focused. They could get their work done faster. And there just wasn't so much fill. Like when your kids are sick and they send home the schoolwork, I was like, why do we have so much random paperwork? This is like
Mhm.
8 hours. And so just kind of feeling like school wasn't what it used to be when we were in school, as far as the emphasis on like the seasonal changes and the fun class parties and birthdays.
Mhm.
There's kind of a lot of regulations now in schools, and I can see it from both perspectives. With they just like the schools that we attended, they don't do classroom celebrations for
Yeah.
birthdays. You can't bring in stuff from the home. You can't pass out invitations in class. Everything has to be done private.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So there's those kind of restrictions, and it just wasn't
Mhm.
the like excitement. There was a lot more pressure on how well you were performing,
Mhm.
and the constant talk of like all the craziness that we hear everywhere with school shootings, and if this goes wrong and that goes wrong, and I'm like, we never thought about where to shield and stuff, which I understand the world is changing, but
Right.
just that psychiatric pressure on children
Mhm.
and seeing it all, I was just like, you know what, school needs to be a place where they love learning, they can embrace it, and they can learn what they like, because that love of learning is only fostered for so long before children naturally grow up and kind of are like, oh, this isn't cool to be into school anymore. So we really wanted to capitalize on that and show them just there's different outlets.
Yeah.
Um, I
How
will
far
say,
out how far out
uh-huh.
were you guys, like, kind of thinking through this decision? Like, the
Pretty
last
much last
semester
year.
of last year? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to keep my kids going to like learning from home when the school opened back up, but we had
Mhm.
moved and it was a new school. So we did think it was important for them to kind of learn our neighborhood since we are out in the middle of nowhere,
Sure.
all of that. So we did try it, and I am always for trying everything. I'm easygoing in that sense. Like, sure, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, I'm okay with adapting and changing. So
Yeah.
I'm never like sold on this is, if I am hardcore on something, there's a big push behind why. I kind of just adapt and go with it. Like right now, we're adapting again what our homeschool was for the past 2 months. So we're kind of tweaking it and changing. And I'm just always big on like you learn as you go and you kind of just find what works for you.
Yeah.
So what worked in the first 2 months, not necessarily that anything went bad. It's just like, hey, let's an easier way to streamline it, or this works better for us on this schedule,
Yeah.
which is nice. With it being the seasons, it gives us more flexibility that like we can go to the pumpkin patch on Wednesday at 10 a.m. when everyone's at work and school and we're not fighting the crowds of the weekend when everyone's trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
So that is really nice. We do have like a fall break coming up here. And so I told my kids yesterday, I was like, hey, we still have school this week. If y'all want to bust out with all your work and be done by Tuesday, then your fall break just starts earlier. And
Mhm.
so they are like setting up their desks today and coordinating chapters and like all of that fun
And
stuff.
and for those who don't know, what grades are they in?
Fourth and second.
4th and 2nd. Okay.
Yes. But
Yeah.
we get to speed up. So like my daughter is reading at the same level as her brother. So
Uh-huh.
they have the same like books and things that they can coordinate. And that
Yeah.
was one of the joys of homeschool, is that they're not stuck in learning as fast or slow as somebody else in their class. There's no comparison.
Right.
It's just at the pace in which they're learning and what they're living. Like, for example, when everything happened with the Queen passing in England, our
Mhm.
whole week was just devoted to learning all about the monarch.
Oh, cool.
So we
Ooh,
went
I'll
through
have to
all
send you the podcast then that I was listening to.
we watched so many documentaries about like back in the day with Diana and stuff and those films, and then like following their family lineage and researching the animals
Oh
and why
man,
things
I should have
changed.
FaceTimed you during the day. I wanna be in class.
Oh yeah,
I
we did
love
that.
the
And
royal
then
family stuff.
I know
Uh,
we do have pod things, so there are times where we join in with other kids. And
right, so I was gonna ask about that. So you do have other people in your neighborhood, friends in your
yes,
neighborhoods that were going to your school who kinda decided the same thing, right?
yes, yep. So we all
So
kind of can
are you
help each
comfortable
other out.
sharing a bit about how that works?
Yeah, so we just kind of all help each other out in the sense of like I might be stronger in one subject, they might be stronger in another. So there are a few hours in a day where they might go over to someone else's house, and they're not it's not play dates, but they're
Yeah.
learning. Like one of the moms is a teacher. So, or used to be a teacher. And so she'll help on certain things. And then there's times where they come to my house for a few hours and we take on,
Mhm.
and then there's times we do independent studies. So it is kind of just adjusting and finding what is working. And there's
Yeah.
weeks where we're like, hey, I'm really slammed, or this, we can't, like, I'm going to pull back. And it's just that flexibility of change.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to change every day because my kids do well with structure and with routine
Yeah.
to a point. So the nice thing is my kids, I could force them to wake up in the morning, and I mean, they'll do it because they've done school for so long, but if I allow them to sleep in, have their morning, wake up, do their own independent things, and then say, "Hey, at this time, we're gonna sit down and do our work," they're much more like,
Mhm.
"Okay, fine, sure." There's not that pushback of like, "I have to wake up early," and the, like, morning struggles.
Yeah.
So, that is the really nice thing. Has it adjusted my schedule? Yeah, in a sense.
So what was your schedule before? So
It's
on a
pretty much the
Monday.
same. That's where like, that's where it's hard
Well,
because
so I guess this is one of my questions. So,
yeah.
like, the way that knowing nothing about homeschool, when you told me that you are going to homeschool, what that looks like to me is okay. So then, like, on a school day, you have, I know that you follow like a curriculum. They have a
Mhm.
lot of different like homeschool curriculums that you can like, because you still have to like sign off at like, you still have to submit scores and stuff places, right? For
Some you do.
homeschooling?
Every state is different. I will
Yeah,
100% say that
yeah, like,
every
I
state
remember
has
the
different homeschool laws.
yeah, the homeschool ones, like, in Texas when I was younger, I remember they still had to take, like, the state test in some way
Mhm.
or whatever. So anyways, but I guess the way that I picture it is like, okay, so then, like, you sit down at the table and, like, you have to, like, read a lesson with them, and, like, you are actively, like, maybe not doing every single thing, but you have to, like, get them started on assignments, and, like, it's still, like, 4 hours or something of your
Mhm.
day is in my mind what that looks like. Is that
Yeah.
completely wrong?
No, you're right on it, except for that's again where it's hard to share because my kids are so independent and were independent prior
Yeah.
that I can set them up
Yeah,
on
if you
something.
haven't watched previous episodes about how Chelsea's children are, like, insanely independent and mine are much more needy.
Melissa's like stage 5 clinger. And
Ugh.
yeah, my kids are not that way. My kids enjoy doing things on their own, and we kinda embedded that in them when I started my business because going back
Yeah.
when I started it, they were 2 and 3, I think, or 2 just about to turn 4, and so I didn't
Yeah.
have daycare or anything, so I ran my business with 2 little ones at home,
Mhm.
while I was building it, so they have always just shaped them in like, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is my time, this is your time." So, there are things that I can start them on that are independent and things that we have to go over together. Homeschool, again, from when we were younger, a lot has changed to online. So, there's a
Yeah.
lot of online resources for them.
I would imagine it's very helpful too that at this point they at least, like, know how to read. It's not like you're having
Oh,
to, like,
yeah.
sit there and teach them to read. That would
Yeah,
be
I'm not doing kindergarten where it's like, "Okay,
oh,
we're gonna learn our
man.
ABCs, we're gonna learn
We
to
had
write."
kinder during COVID,
Yeah, that's
and
ours was.
Lord bless.
Yeah,
Lord bless. I'm like,
yes,
"You
and I think
just
that
said the word. It's the same word."
it kinda helps because they had that COVID learning, like, that
Yeah.
home
Oh, for
learning,
sure.
so they know how things work, like, for the online stuff. Um, but yeah, as far as my schedule goes, it really hasn't shifted too much. It's just I have to stay on task.
Mhm.
So, I think the 100% key is that I know how much time things take me. Hands
Sure.
down. And then so knowing that I did for my first month kind of adjust to find the sweet spot of, like, how many dozen a week was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, okay, this works," or "This is pushing."
Mhm.
So that helped that I kinda already started playing with it.
I feel like I can already picture you figuring out how to do, like, math problems with stickering your packaging. Like, "Okay, so
We asked them,
if mommy needs 300 boxes stickered."
well, it's funny because they'll use cookies for things like when we're doing, like, counting by 12s and stuff, they're like, "Well, that's a
Yeah.
dozen cookies." So if you're doing like the other day, I was like,
I
"Oh, I had
love
this
it.
many dozen cookies I just packaged," and my son's like, "Oh, well, then that's this many cookies." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Exactly."
I
So,
love it.
um, yeah, as far as mine goes, no, because I had such a tried and true routine that I already
Mhm,
knew worked, it was just like, "Okay, hey, these days are gonna be my long days of,
mhm.
like, I have everybody." So I need to make up these X amount of hours somewhere. So where am I going to make them up?
Well, because I know that you used to do, because we've had an episode where we talked through this before. It's like Mondays were kind of like your admin days, right?
Hmm.
And
Admin and
your
baking.
admin and baking. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Tuesdays would kind of be like your flood days. And then
Yep. Flood
Wednesdays and
details. Hmm.
Thursdays, you're like detailing. So are those things still happening on
Yep.
those days? Okay.
Yep. Exact, because I only have Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday to meet the
Right.
deadline for everything. So yeah, no, it's just adjusting the hours. And that's again,
Yeah.
once you have something that works, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no reason to try and adjust it. If it's a busy week, like we have a field trip we're doing or other things like that, then I'm like, okay, I need to maybe bake
Mhm.
on Sunday and move
Yeah.
everything up a day. But rarely has that happened. And then I was very adamant in the sense that I'm not going to pass up sleeping. I'm not gonna adjust to late
No.
nights
Yeah.
because it just doesn't work for me, and I haven't had to because, again, if I'm like, "Hey, 3 hours I need for this," where am I gonna make that up? So I'm
Mhm.
either gonna stay totally zoned out on the time that I have, and I'm like, "I'm not gonna answer texts, I'm gonna say no to this," like,
Right.
certain things have to be said no to, like, I'm
Yeah.
fine with that, but if things have to adjust, again, I'm not against adjusting.
Well, let's talk about the biggest thing in this. How are the kids enjoying it? Like, are you like everything that you had hoped and the reasons that you had put behind doing it? Are you seeing the benefit of all of it?
Yeah, and they love it, and I ask them, like, all the time, like,
Yeah.
do you wanna do this?" Yeah. There's aspects that they miss, like, they miss seeing some of their friends, but we
Yeah.
live in an area where they're gonna see them up at the park or things like
Sure.
that, so they still get the fun stuff, and then if you have, like, older kids that can take part in after school activities or sports, if you homeschool, your public school has to allow them, at least in Arizona, so don't quote me on this in every state, has to allow them access to those things. So if they, like, played volleyball and wanted to try out for the school volleyball team, as long as they're within their district at the public school, they can
So
still do
cool.
yeah, they can still do community activities.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, they get to see that. So there are times where like, "Dang it, I miss seeing all my friends every day." But then I'm
Mm.
like, "Okay, well, do you wanna adjust back?" Or and they're like, "No." I like so, yeah, once they get a part in, like I said, the Monarch Week, they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." So they watched the funeral,
Yeah.
um, service and all of that, and we kinda went over like, "Oh, this person is wearing this for this reason," and I'm like, "This is something that
Ooh.
your kids will ask you years later, like, 'Do you
Yeah.
remember where you were when this happened?'" Or, um, stuff like that. So and then we have friends that are over in England, so they got to ask all of their questions to them. So
Mhm.
then we started jotting down questions throughout the week and sending it over, and they would send them like details or pictures back and stuff. So stuff like
That's
that
so
gets them more
cool.
involved, but they're still learning.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I will say, great advice that I was given from so many of you when they heard I was homeschooling is you just kind of have to get out of the mentality of like what structured school is that you're so used to, like,
Yeah.
reading is this, social studies is this. It's like, let them working in the garden can be math and finding out how much soil to add to the ratio of, like, this mixture or seeds and stuff can be science, and
Mhm.
if I put this in this sunlight and this one over here in more shade, how do the plants change and grow? So they're like, it's just adapting is like reading
Yeah.
instructions on the back of a box and helping you bake is math and reading.
I mean,
So
it's how we were all educated, like, at the very beginning of, like, the US, right? Like,
mhm.
that's pretty much how it is, like, kind of, like, looking at things and figuring it all out and
Yeah,
kind
and
of
it's fun
growing and
reading
asking the questions and yeah.
yeah, fun reading the books and stuff like that we, um, were, like, loving when we were growing up, like The
Yeah.
Secret Garden and stuff like that. I'm like, "Oh, let's go to the library and find these books instead."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been fun, but, yeah, as far as my schedule goes and stuff, it's just it's rigid, so there's times where I'm like, "Sorry, I don't have extra time
Yeah.
to like, during the day to be like, oh, I could leisurely push this because I got 5 hours until the kids are home."
Right.
I'm like, when I have work, I'm like, silencing my phone and
Yeah.
working. So
Yeah. I know, I always have in my head, I'm like, she's probably homeschooling right now." I'm like, "Why haven't I heard back yet? Does she hate it? No? Okay. She's homeschooling."
yeah.
Well, good. Well, it's, I've loved being able to see the experience, like, through you. I
Oh,
will
thank
not
you.
do it unless I absolutely really like have to need to. Um, but I love like why you guys chose to do that, and I think it's a perfect fit for your kids, you know? Like
Yes.
I think that it works for yours, you know, and I think it works for you guys and how your household is. So it's been
Yeah,
really
it's
cool to like
being in
see
tune
that
with your
journey.
kids, and some thrive in that other type of setting and
Yeah,
some thrive in different, and I
yeah,
think I just both Tommy and I kinda have the approach of, like, do whatever you want if it works for
yeah,
you, like, just not following the norm of everyone else.
yeah.
I think I have a problem of that anyway, like, when everybody goes, like, I don't know, let's say Melissa's pastel colors of Easter, I'm like, "Give me bright colors."
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of my lifestyle, so
Yeah.
you just know your
Well,
kids,
very
but
cool. Well, I'm excited to continue hearing about that. But we do have holidays coming up and we have timeline. But
we
Chelsea,
do.
here's what I'm thinking. I'm veering off and I want to see how you feel about this. I'm thinking that maybe our information on holiday timelines and when to post pre-sales and when to do pickups and all of our recommendations
Mhm.
is for our Patreons.
Patreon only.
Don't we think? I
Right?
think they deserve it. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. We hope that it's been great to just like catch up, you know?
Mhm,
Just catch up on what all's going on over at Rolling in the Dough AZ and Missy P Sweets. But if you would like more information on holiday timelines, we'll see if we can put maybe some fun graphics out to help you guys with
mhm.
some of this stuff. Pop on over to our Patreon, and there will be a Patreon exclusive episode this same week that this is airing. So it should be there.
A 2, you get double the fun.
Woo-hoo! All right, guys. Well, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, pop over to the Domestic Cookie to check out our fall merch and get all comfy and cozy. And we will see you guys over on the Patreon or back here next week.
Yes, and I am Chelsea with Rolling in the Dough AZ,
I'm Melissa with Missy P Sweets. May your cakes never be dry.
and your icing be shiny and crater free. Have a good one, guys.
Bye, y'all.